Alrighties. Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. It is great to see you. Yeah, it's really great to see you, actually. This has been a rough weekend. It is great to see you, and it is a great night to talk about a little bit of Canadian history that is always dear to our hearts. Tonight, the conversation and the slideshow will be about Grenfell rugs from the Grenfell mission. Now, this is a subject we talk about often on the show. In my opinion, it can never be enough. It's such a huge part of our rug hooking history, our shared history. So as it happens, I want to send a huge thank you to Susan Wentworth for sending me a link last week to an auction. It was called Stair Auction. It's an auction house I didn't know of before, Stair, like the stairs. And for whatever reason, they had an enormous collection of Grenfell rugs. They were all from the same person from the same estate. There were, I think, 36 or 38 lots, but most of those lots were multiples, like 6, 7, 5, 4, 8. I mean, with very few exceptions, there were multiple. So there were over 100 Grenfell rugs in this auction. Now, I don't know how long these auctions remain online for the public to see this sort of wealth, this catalog of information and visual images of Grenfell rugs that I have never seen before, patterns that I have never seen before, including the one that's in the thumbnail for tonight's show. If I haven't seen them, and I work in rug hooking all the time, maybe you have seen them, but they aren't common ones. Some of these are super rare rugs. Because I just wasn't sure how long all of these rugs would be available for viewing, how long the back catalog is supported online, I made this into a giant extra large show that we will never get to today. But I figure as long as those images are in our slideshow, I want to, probably over the course of the next week, be able to look at them with you, because some of them are classic Grenfell images that we know and we already love. And many of them are images that we have not seen before, that must not have really been great signature patterns, not like Grenfell rugs always kind of revolved around all things Canadian, and things that sort of had that kind of souvenir quality, that association to Canada. With some of the rugs are geometrics in the show tonight, and florals and almost still lifes. So very different. And Susan, thank you so much for alerting me to this auction, because if she hadn't, this would have come and gone and I would not have known that these rugs were there. Now, the auction ended, I think, on January 31st. So the auction is ended, and I have the auction results for all of the rugs. The only thing we're talking about tonight is Grenfell rugs, because I will be back with you tomorrow for coffee time, and we'll continue the conversation then. I have lots of ribbon candy hooking stuff to talk about, but I really want to stay pure tonight because there's so much content, and I don't want to miss this opportunity to talk just about Grenfell rugs tonight. Let me just grab some water. Man, it's been a long day. All right, let me give a quick shout out to all my buddies out here. So I can see who's on tonight. It isn't our usual night, so I'm extra grateful that you're there. Melissa, great to see you. Judy, good evening. Cheryl, great to see you. Can't believe it's February, and I guess the various Punxsutawney Phils, right? Like there's different ones in different parts of the country, had different messages today. They had different reports. So we're definitely in for winter in this part of the country, but we'll see what happens next. It was a very busy weekend, wasn't it? In lots of ways. Judy says it's spring-like today, Cheryl. I suspect we'll have a ways to go yet. Oh, where I am. Oh, yeah. I think we have a little ways further. It's only February 2nd. I can't believe it's not even January anymore. Kirsten, great to see you. Cheers, my dears, in Vermont. Stay as long as you can. I understand. Catherine, great to see you in Southern California. In Goretti up in Canada, great to see you. Becky, happy Sunday to you too. All your rug hooking buddies. Kind of nice having to look forward to. Me too. I love doing this on Sunday. I'm sorry I wasn't with you on Friday. We went to my mom's. We haven't been there since Christmas, and I know it's like, well, that was just recently, but for the kids, it was a really long time to go without seeing Gami. So we were there, and I really wanted the Friday to just talk and hang out. We ended up watching a show. I used to love to watch Morse. Do you remember the Morse series, the mystery? I started watching Endeavor, and that's Morse's first name. So it's like a prequel to the Morse series, and I did not know it existed, and it was wonderful. So we were binging on that Friday, and that brings me to you on Sunday. So sorry about missing you, but it's great to catch up now. Janice, great to see you. Maureen, great to see you. It's cold and wintry there in Michigan, but you are warm and cozy inside watching. Oh, I'm so glad. Karen, great to see you. Happy Groundhog Day to you too. From balmy Black Forest, Colorado. Things change fast over there, don't they? Jessica, great to see you. Good evening, Judy. There's a real hero feat making sure those images are preserved. Oh, that is, thank you. So, well, I could get in trouble. Who knows? I don't know. But they were there online, and while they were online, I saved them for our slideshow here. And I feel like at least we're shoring up history, in part because sometimes I try to look back at stuff I had as auction tabs and it's just not there anymore. And I think, oh, I don't want this to happen with this stuff, because this really is, these are some super rare images, and they are very high quality images too. Mom, great to see you. Hello, hello. We were just together today. Oh, and Liza, great to see you. Good evening to you in Dallas. Looking forward to the show. Me too. Let's get started. So, before I do the slideshow, let's talk about Grenfell rugs just quickly, because I have done lots of shows on Grenfell rugs, and I always enjoy talking about the Grenfell mission. A bit of serendipity happened this weekend as well. I was in Northampton yesterday. I went up for Webb's. Don't be jealous. For those of you who know Webb's, it is like the largest yarn store in the U.S. And I only bought 3 balls of yarn that are for one of the projects for the Rose book. But I could have gone, ape whatever, and I didn't. I was very contained and controlled, but it was a lot of fun. And I took Teddy was with me, and he wanted to do some video game stores with Papa, and then I ended up at the Raven, which is a great used bookstore in Northampton. I found a whole bunch of books that I thought were interesting on art and poetry, and incredibly, there were no books on rug hooking, but this book was in the quilt section. Grenfell mats, right? And I have this book, and one of my great worries for the weekend was, how am I ever going to be able to find it? If you could see this mess around me, you would call up Hoarders, right, and have the cast come over here now. I thought I'd never be able to find it, and here it was in the store for $2.95. So I said, I will take that. That is going to save me hours of searching for my Grenfell book. So I thought, surely that's a sign, right? So let me just tell you a little bit about this Grenfell Mats book. You do occasionally see it on eBay. When you do, it is not astronomically expensive. Typically, it shouldn't be. So it's called Grenfell Mats, and this was published by Hudson River Press, 1994. I'm not immediately seeing. Patricia Lynch Smith wrote the intro, but Paula Laverty is writing the inside text. And of course, Paula Laverty is the great historian who put together, the book was called Silk Mats. I'll tell you, because I'm sure we're going to say it 100 times during this show. So I'm going to skip for the thinking about time, right, and what we can do. I'm going to skip over the introduction and just read the Paula Laverty part, at least the beginning of it, to give you an introduction to the Grenfell mission, if you don't know anything about it, just so you can get your head around it, get your feet under you, so that when we start looking at these images, they'll be even more meaningful to you. So this is an excerpt that might be taken from Paula Laverty's book directly, and it's called The Hooked Mats of the Grenfell Mission. Quote, "Save your old silk stockings. When your stockings run, let them run to Labrador. We need silk stockings in unlimited quantities. Please send your silk stockings and underwear, no matter how old and worn. We need such silk and artificial silk for the making of hooked rugs of a beautiful type." End quote. This was an urgent plea sent out from the Grenfell mission of Newfoundland and Labrador to American and British socialites in 1928. By this time, the cottage industry, referred to as the industrial, established by the Grenfell mission more than 20 years before, was flourishing and was, as Sir Wilfrid Grenfell wrote later in his later years, the key to the whole situation, those silk stockings. Mat hooking in Newfoundland and Labrador did not originate with the Grenfell mission. Hooking, so this part of the text is going to talk about the history of rug hooking. This part I'm going to leave because we know this already. But this is one of the rug hooking missions wherein Grenfell himself arrives in the Labrador, Newfoundland area to find the local situation to be quite desperate, the economic situation to be really desperate, dire poverty, right? And the idea sort of, it's a medical mission originally, right? He comes with medicine and supplies and the thought of doing sort of a medical work project there, but it's very clear that the fishing has kind of tapered off or gone downhill, and that isn't one of the sort of great businesses. It's not flourishing at that moment, and there's a lot of people who could, in theory, do great work, but there's nothing to do. So he creates this industry there, and it does be called the industrial. In the end, it is just referred to as the industrial, but he comes up with this idea to make women busy with making mats, something that they've always done. But in this case, he is positioned to, with the help of the people around him, he is positioned to sell the mats that are made to the American market, to department stores. So he's a great middleman. People will be making these rugs, and they already know how to do that. And then he will be sending them out to be sold, and the people who make them will profit in that. And it will change the economy in the region, right? This will help the economy in this region and create a lot of different types of problems, like the problems that arise in all of these mission areas when women take to rug hooking in these desperately poverty-stricken areas. Women take to rug hooking, start making a great income, become the main breadwinner. Then there's different problems. There's different social problems that nobody could anticipate before. But that's a different conversation, isn't it? Right? Something about social equality and whatever is a completely different conversation. But the point is that the mission really worked. And being able to give the shout out for silk stockings, silk underwear, raw materials to socialites who had it and were just going to throw it out anyway was a deal breaker, right? Having those supplies come in great numbers and great weight to Labrador, and to be the main product, the main material that the Grenfell mission then uses to hook these mats, because you will see over the course of this slideshow, and I am getting to it, that these mats are very finely done in a very sort of geometric typewriter way, right? They're not all higgledy-piggledy, willy-nillys. It's like boop, boop, just like a typewriter, and made very methodically and technically. And pantyhose are great for that because they have such great stretch. They make a great loop. They are tremendously strong, and they make very tidy little loops, right? Very predictable and also very easy on the hands. So this was a genius move. And the mats we're looking at tonight, and I'll tell you if there are exceptions, are mats that are made from pantyhose. So this is a beautiful and important part of our rug hooking history. And it really was exciting to see an auction with so many Grenfell mats come up. Now, the Canadian term for a hooked rug is a mat, but specifically Grenfell mats are always referred to as mats, no matter how large they are. Whether they're a little candle mat for the table or a large rug for the floor, they will be referred to as mats. So I'm referring to them as mats. I'm not changing the language because I'm in the US, right? Let me just, I saw some more buddies coming in. Linda, great to see you. Happy new month, right? Fresh start again. Silk, thank you, Rita. Silk Stocking Mats is the name of Paula Laverty's book. And I don't have it in front of me, but we have looked at it a couple of times. It is the ultimate book about the Grenfell rugs, right? It is the ultimate history, and it will be referred to constantly in my notes tonight. Thanks, Rita. Sage Gardens. Sage Gardens. Ruth, that's you, isn't it? Where you made it. Good to see you. Dave, great to see you. Hi, everyone. Salmon patties and hard cider. Still working on a quilt. Cheers, my dears. That sounds like a lot of fun. I am so thirsty. Okay, let's do this. So I'm gonna jump right into the rugs. I'm gonna tell you all of the key things that you need to know about each rug, and let's get started. We will never finish this in one evening. Hang on, I already see a problem. Nope, that's not the one that I want. Hang on just a second. I'm already panicking. Okay, nope, we're okay. I'm just going to make a mark because the first item is out of place. Leave it to me, right? Okay, so this is the beginning of the slideshow right here. Diana, great to see you. I'm so happy that you're there. Okay, so this is one of a lot of 4 Grenfell Trivets. So you can see these are round. They're going to be a little bit smaller than chair pads, right? These are Trivets. So a group of 4 Trivets. So this is one of the images. And yes, this is done with silk stockings. I'm going to show you all 4. The estimate for this lot of 4 was between $250 and $500. Now, is there some aging? Oh boy, my computer just froze. Don't do that. Is there some, wow, aging? Not really. Not on this one anyway, right? I mean, that's pretty dang good. It yellowed a little bit, but there's not a tremendous amount of color loss. And you will see on the reverse of this trivet, you see the Grenfell tag. That is the money shot right there. That is the all-important piece of provenance that you need if you want to sell a rug as a Grenfell rug. Without that tag right there, without that, you can't, something can look like a Grenfell. It can be the same pattern as a Grenfell, but of course it's going to boost the value of an auction lot if it actually says that it's Grenfell. Can you see here the pantyhose? Now, some of the pantyhose were dyed. Some of them were light, sheer, transparent, white, brown, nude, suntan. Not all of the colors of the legs' eggs, right? But lots of brown tone colors. And lots of dyed pantyhose as well. So you can see on the backs of many of them. Now this is the front of another trivet. It looks almost like the same design. It's obviously a little bit different, not just color-wise. The rug itself is a little bit different, right? The motion of the cross-country skier, a little bit different. And this is another one of the trivets from the same lot. Remember, this lot was estimated to come in between $250 and $500. This is the third of the trivets in the lot. Funny little polar bear, right? He's okay. He's a little on the dumpy side. He's kind of a cyclops polar bear. Maybe that makes him special, but you can see how lovely the colors are in this. And there is the all-important tag. And, okay, this is making me a little bit nervous. My thing is playing some games with me right now. Okay. Hang on, everybody. I'm just a little bit nervous because these pictures are not coming through. And I wonder why. Oh, this could be a problem. Okay. A bunch of pictures in between didn't come through, but let's just let it go because this still looks like our polar bear. I'm just going to ignore that. Let's hope for the best. Say a little prayer. This is still our polar bear. That's his little feet, the little cyclops polar bear. Okay, and here's the 4th trivet from the lot. I will tell you that this lot did very well. You will be surprised, and I think as a rug hooker pleased, that these Grenfell rugs did extraordinarily well at auction, right? So this last one is like one of the dog sleigh dogs, like a husky type dog. Maybe not, maybe husky's the wrong word, but one of these sled toting dogs. And all 4 of these had all 4 of those had the label on them, right? They had the tag on them. The high estimate was $500, and those 4 trivets sold for $700. Now that's good. So really, think about it. We should take heart. I will tell you the estimates as we go along. We should take heart because normally when we look at rugs at auction, as we often do on the show, aren't we always lamenting that so much work and time, hours and daylight or candlelight went into making some of these beautiful late 19th century, early 20th century rugs, and they sell for almost nothing. That's not the case tonight, right? You are going to be pleasantly surprised. I don't think there's a single disappointment here in the lot, but that is a good sign for us as rug hookers that we are seeing hooked rugs. Now, granted, they are Grenfell, so it is very specific. They are going up for auction, and they are far exceeding the high end of the auction estimate. That is good news. So let's come back over here for the next one. And so this one is very special. I'm going to give you the estimate on this. The estimate was between 400 and 600. I want you to guess how much it actually sold for. In the meantime, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. So the estimate is between 400 and 600. This is called Grenfell, and this is in the U.S., right? This is in the U.S., not Canada. Grenfell United Church St. Anthony rug. And this is mounted on a frame, as many things are in this show. So it is mounted for display, and it was displayed, right? And within the auction, and remember, this is a stairs auction, S-T-A-I-R-S. It's a stairs auction. Within each auction lot, it does give you incredible detail on all of the places where the respective rug in that lot, or rugs plural, were displayed or seen published in the pages of anything, including Paula Laverty's book. So I have to say, in terms of looking at an auction, you know how we often look at these auctions, and I say out loud, probably inappropriate, like, I can't believe how poor the attributions are, or how sort of sloppy the attributions are on most, including really large auction house sites. Not the case with this stairs auction. The detail is excruciatingly and impossibly articulate and descript and well researched. So really wonderful. So this is a 26 by 40 piece inside of a frame. And the note is that St. Anthony, which is in Newfoundland, Canada, became the headquarters of the Grenfell mission in the early 1900s after a hospital was built in the town, right? Because remember, it was first a medical mission. Today, the church no longer stands, but the view remains much the same. The design was in production by 1929. So we can't attribute it to any earlier year or date, but 1929 is the first reference of this design. So this is special with an estimate of 400 to 600 because this is actually the headquarters of the Grenfell rug mission. So it doesn't get any more descriptive than this. Now, there are no guesses. The top estimate for this piece was $600. The piece sold for $1,800. $1,800. So 3 times the poppermost estimate. That is phenomenal. This is a gorgeous piece, right? It's a picture book. It's a window into that moment, that place, those women sitting in that little building, down there on the bottom, right, working on the rugs. This is the whole history right here before your eyes, right? This is so important, particularly now because the building or the church is gone, so the view is changed. Now, you can see the horizontal nature of the hooking. That will be for speed. You can see that some of the pantyhose that are dyed, they have kind of lost their color over time. Some of the colors are very fast still, very color fast. They're hanging in there. Others have kind of faded, mellowed, or gone to what otherwise would be called sort of a patina. Can't really say that with fiber, but you know what I mean. You can really see the technical mechanics of hooking a piece like this. And this being a super important piece, right? This should be really the first piece in a picture book on Grenfell rugs. Very important. So hang on as I come back to where we were. Sorry, wait a minute. I am getting a little bit of play tonight with this program, so let's hope that we are good. All right. Do they tell anything about the buyers? I'm wondering who's competing for these historical treasures. Judy, that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer at all. I know that on the pages for each lot, they're not saying who the seller is, just what they sold for. And how many bids they had. So for some of the later ones, I started to include how many bids there were. I didn't for all of them. It's many pages that I'm looking at, right? This could actually be a book tonight. It's just like tons of information about the way that this auction went down, which is very positive. But no, and I don't know what policies are at auction houses in terms of relating that information, because I agree, it's a really good question. I do know from reading the detail on some of these auction lots that they were, many or most of them were in a museum in San Jose, California, where Catherine is, right? So that I know for sure. But yeah, I'm not sure if they're sort of scattering to the wind now, or I'm guessing they've been picked. There's so many. I don't think they've all been picked up by the same person. But that's a great question, and I would love to know the answer to that as well. Oh, Susan, great to see you. Susan, who just logged on, is the person who sent me the link to this. So without this, Susan, I would not have known that this auction was going on. I wasn't aware of Stair Auction at all as an auction house, never heard of them. So that was a really good stroke of luck, and I'm very grateful to you for sending them, because now we can all share in this knowledge and these beautiful visuals. So let's come back over here. I'm going to keep going. Susan says, I do. It was, oh, Susan knows. I do. It was buyer number 2000. He or she bought, seriously, bought almost everything. The other items as well as rugs. I tallied the buyers. Susan, that is great information. Thank you. I wonder who it was, like Judy, and I wonder what they're going to do with those. I would love to see them donated to the Rug Hooking Museum of North America, right? If they went to Canada, that would be amazing. I'd also love to see them distributed among folk art museums all over North America and the UK, right? Places where we have this the history of that age in rug hooking. Australia as well, right? All of our rug hooking partners represented. Be great to see. We'll have to see what happens next. Susan, that's very good information. It's very exciting, isn't it? Okay, so this is one of the rugs that I've got to say, it absolutely blew me away. It was so unexpected in my mind. When I think of Grenfell rugs, you know, I think of animals, and I think of people fishing and working and clubbing seals, you know, for pelts, and pursuing all of the businesses and economies of that time in that place. This is very, very different. So this does not claim to be a Grenfell rug set. This is going to be a lot with 2 hooked rugs. It says hooked rugs with wildlife, possibly Canadian. The estimate on these 2, and you're seeing the first one, was 500 to 700, and they sold for 700. So they sold right on the button at the top of the estimate. They were mounted on frames, both of them. The mat with the moose, so the one we're looking at here, is 20 1/4 by 36 inches, and it is in a frame. I think I might have colored this one. Yes. So I just was fooling. So what you saw in the last slide is the reality of the color, right? It's gotten very dark. It's mellowed with age. It's taken on whatever kind of smoke, whatever was in the house that it lived in, and it became very dark. But when I just fooled with levels on the computer, I was able to bring it to this coloring, which is probably what it looked like back in the day. I think it is an incredibly unique looking rug. Obviously, I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer that it's Canadian. I'm just looking at the landscape. Shades of sort of cubism, as you would expect, right, at this time, right? It's a very shape-driven, almost surrealist landscape. Very, very unusual piece. Very different than any of the Grenfells that I've seen before. And again, it does not proclaim to be a Grenfell. But man, it looks like it's hooked with stockings, doesn't it? Let's see what else we can see, which doesn't mean it's a Grenfell. This is the other one. So this is the second one. We're not actually seeing the backs of these, so there will not be Grenfell labels, because if there were, it would say. So this one is a mat with a beaver and deer, and this is 22 inches by 36.5 inches. So this one is a hair larger, also on a frame, right? When I say framed, it doesn't have a frame around it. It's on a stretcher frame. It is safely on a stretcher frame. I think these 2 are so unusual. They remind me a little bit of, oh no, did you lose sound? Oh no. I'm going to hold for a second. I just want to be sure that somebody can hear me. I'm going to have a drink of water while thank you so much. I'm really thirsty. I'm just going to wait a second to be sure that my sound is there. Okay, good. Janice, I hope my sound comes back for you. Okay, good. Yeah, there was a weird glitch a little while ago that really scared me. These remind me so much of Paul Klee. and just that, early 20th century school of hooking. Very unusual. Whether they're Grenfells or not, you have to admit these two rugs are absolutely extraordinary designs. Landscapes with very folk art perspective of animals. And these are Canadian animals. So $700 for those two, right at the top of what the estimate was. Now, this is another rug that cannot proclaim that it is Grenfell. It is a hooked oval IGA rug. If you're wondering what IGA stands for, right, can you see in the text? I think I might have colored this one too. Okay, so I brought the color up on this too, right? Just be aware that this is what the rug actually looks like right now. But when I change the color level so we could enjoy it more, can you see that on top of the left sort of rooster or chicken, there's an I, over the one on the right there's a G, and underneath, right at the base of sort of the flower pot motif is an A. IGA actually stands for International Grenfell Association. So while the lot said possibly Grenfell, it's hard to deny, there can't be a tag on it, right? But it's hard to deny that it is not a Grenfell because it says IGA. So this is a piece that is dated 1931. It is 37.5 by 24.5. The estimate was between 400 and 600. This one was featured in Paula Laverty's book, Silk Stockings Mats, right? That was from 2005, McGill Queen's Press. This mat is likely a unique example made as a gift for someone in the mission. Patterned fabrics were used to hook this mat, something never seen in a picture mat from the industrial. That's the note that's on this auction lot. So hang on. This piece was estimated 400 to 600, and this piece sold low. It sold at 400, right? It didn't sell under, but it sold at the lowest part of the estimate. Now, to me, that kind of breaks my heart. I was definitely asleep at the wheel during this auction, and I'm still smarting, right, from Christmas and the holidays and Teddy's birthday. So I was not in the market for this. So I wasn't participating in live because I had no hope of buying anything. But kind of wish I was now, because for this piece to sell for 400, when this is obviously an IGA, International Grenfell Association mat, and it is a one-off that is believed to be a gift for someone who was working there, not made with pantyhose, but made with patterned fabrics, that to me, yes, it's not a Grenfell, right? And you cannot call it a Grenfell and you cannot price it as a Grenfell. But to me, this piece of history is somehow more compelling than all of the Grenfell mats because it's so unique and it is definitely part of the mission. Lots of question marks here. It really gets my mind dreaming about who this mat belonged to, but what another extraordinary piece. Sharon, thank you so much. Sharon says, I spotted a Grenfell mat on our local marketplace. Oh, wow. A larger one, I believe 26 by 38, quite a large one. Okay, it's tagged dogs pulling sleigh. Okay, if it's a good price, maybe swoop in there, because if I'm sure Susan's right that there's one seller who kind of monopolized this auction, and I'm hopefully for a very good reason, and I'm sure for a very good reason. But oh, Rhodian Woodland, I have sound, and you are listening from the province of Newfoundland, Labrador. How appropriate and perfect is that? Welcome. I'm so happy that you're there tonight. Very good to have you. This piece really stirs my imagination, gets my heart pumping, because it is an unusual piece. It's sold way at the bottom of the estimate. And I feel like somebody made out like a bandit. One of these days, somebody's going to find a photo of people from the Grenfell mission, and somebody's going to have this rug down on the floor, and it's going to be figured out sooner rather than later, I bet. And we're going to then know who this rug belonged to. But in the meantime, what a beautiful mystery and what a great piece of history. Now, this is a pattern that we have seen many times. This is one of the most common Grenfell patterns. However you feel about the subject, right, or however you feel about the fact that this mat is one of the most common, and we can't say that this is a rare mat or that it's in particularly good condition. What I can say about this mat is that it sold over the estimate. The estimate was between $150 and $250, probably because of the condition, but it sold for $300. right? So it sold well over the estimate. It is 27.5 inches by 44 inches. It is a Grenfell hooked rug of a leaping stag. One thing that I can say about this rug, for however you feel about rugs that you see more often than not, patterns that you see often, right, maybe don't feel as special. What I will say is, counter to that argument, it's not as special as some of the others because it's one that we see all the time. Counter to that argument, I would say the fact that it was so popular and so celebrated and so sought after gives it prestige, makes it something special, even though it is one of the Grenfells that we have seen quite a bit. It's a beloved one. It's a great favorite. Here it is with quite a bit of damage, but still performing way above the estimate. Now, isn't that something? You can see the backing fabric, the burlap in the backing here. You can see by the way that it's damaged that it is almost certainly damaged by furniture legs on top of it. I mean, wouldn't that be your thought? It doesn't look like somebody cut it with a pair of scissors or somebody put it through some kind of wacky washing machine. It looks like there was a piece of furniture on it, like table legs or something, and that did it in the end. Could have been 4, actually, because there's 2 marks down at the bottom as well. So there is damage on this piece, but color-wise, I'll come back to, wait a minute, I want to go back one more. Color-wise, the front of the mat is, hang on, very good, right? Going from this shot to this shot, colors are quite good. They're very strong still. And as we know, no matter how many times a pattern was done, right? If it was done many, many times, it's because it sold very well. Despite the fact that a pattern might have been done over and over and over, we do see different coloration from one to the next. And Karen says, did I see numbers in red under IGA? Oh, Karen, I got to go back and look now. Hang on, let's come back to IGA. Hold on, I want to know too. Oh, it was the year. Karen, it was the year. I'll just double check, but I think it had to be 1929. Is that what it looks like? Oh, I can't see it. I've got a tiny view, but it must be. Okay, does it say 1931? Because the paperwork says 1929. It might say 1931. It could be that the paperwork is wrong. Good catch, though. See, the fact that it's dated as well, I think it's such an interesting piece. I only have a few picks in this auction that I think to myself, man, do I ever wish that I was alert for that, right? So this is a piece. This is another piece that maybe you've seen before. Obviously, the polar bears on ice floes is a common motif within the Grenfell wheelhouse, right? Of the designs that we see manufactured, the polar bears, particularly on ice floes, that's a biggie, right? That's a super Canada-esque motif that people really wanted as a souvenir. So it is a motif we see a lot, but I have to say this exact composition is not one that we see a lot. There's some different stuff going on here. Number one, the scale of the polar bears and their place on the ice floes is unusually small. Normally we see them as the main characters. In this case, really the ocean is the main character. The polar bears are just a small part of the story. And we are seeing another iceberg on the horizon. We are seeing the sun coming up in these little sort of filigree rays of light. Now, these are both unusual things, right? We don't get the sun and the iceberg in every polar bear composition. We also don't get this incredibly fine and lucky breakdown of colors. Now, that sea being the color blue that it is, right? That greeny teal, almost tropical sea is extraordinary. And that gives way to a very cornflower blue sky, right? That's not a navy sky. That's not like a cobalt sky. That is a nice, soft sort of cornflower blue sky. It's absolutely gorgeous. The amount of color striation, right? The colors changing over time in the water, in the sky, and indeed in the frame makes it look almost like a trompe-l'oeil wood frame, right? It almost looks like streaky bits of wood. It's such an extraordinary breakdown of color at this point. This rug was estimated $600 to $800, and it is, this is a popular image because this image was designed by Grenfell himself, by Wilfred Grenfell. He designed this one himself. he got involved in the designing of the images, feeling maybe this is a bit of mansplaining, I don't know, but he did feel that he could do better, right? When he saw the kinds of things that were being designed, he felt that he could do better and that he knew what sorts of things were saleable. You know, being a person of wealth and a person who traveled, he probably had a good feel for the sort of good pulse on what was contemporary, what was saleable, where the market was. So he dabbled in designing himself. And this one was widely reproduced for the market in the United States. It was put into production around 1916. So there are similar ones of polar bears on ice floes, but this one is a little different than the others, estimated between 600 and 800. This one sold for 1,800. 1,800, right? This is really extraordinary. So it sold for more than twice the upper estimate. And it is an unusual one because Wilfred Grenfell designed it himself. So in that regard, it is its own piece of history. Each one of these obviously is handmade, has lots of distinctions and things that make them different and special and collectible. But certainly being designed by Grenfell himself would be one that carries a lot of clout. Speaking of carrying a lot of clout, okay, so this series is going to be 4 Grenfell hunting scenes. So I'm going to show you the lot of 4. The estimate on these 4 was $400 to $600. What? Seriously, $400 to $600 for 4 Grenfells? If it sold on the lower end, that would be $100 each. I'm sorry, maybe they were just being conservative and polite with the estimates, but that is way off, right? For 4 Grenfells. Hold on, I'm just taking a sip. These aren't huge. These estimate, you know, around 16 inches long side, right? So 10, 11 small side. This one is like 16 and a quarter by 11 and 3/8. So these aren't massive pieces. Quick sip. Hope you can't hear me slurping. I'm so thirsty. These pieces were estimated between 400 and 600. I'll tell you now, they sold for 1,700, 1700. So here we're seeing a mat that's called Hunter Spearing Seal. Is this? No, this is, nope, I'm sorry. This is a framed mat called Hunter with Husky. Beautiful piece. This piece is called, hang on, an ice. Is this an ice fishing scene? Could this be an ice fishing scene? I think it is. An ice fishing scene mounted on a frame. Design attributed to Ned Hancock, probably circa 1938. Now, talk about unusual. This is so unusual. Would you have thought that this is a Grenfell rug? Well, it's attributed. It's got the visible label. So all 4 in this lot are Grenfell rugs. Now, this is really unusual. Would I think that this on its own would be a very high selling or valuable rug? Based on its rarity, you would think so. But because, you know, for a rug to be truly valuable, right? And we've had this conversation before. If you're shopping for Van Gogh, and you have a choice, right? You're standing there, money's not a thing, right? That's not an issue. You're standing there and you're thinking, should I get one of the Starry Night series or should I get one of his still lifes with oranges? If money is not a consideration, you're probably going to go for the Starry Night because that is what is synonymous with that person's work, right? That is like the sort of the signature work of that person. Same deal with Grenfell. When we talk about Grenfell rugs, the rugs that historically have been the most saleable at auction, this auction aside, because this auction kind of blows all previous auctions with scrappy presence of Grenfell rugs, like one here, one there, one damaged, one not, one attributed to Grenfell when it's actually a Cheticamp rug. You know, it's been pretty spotty, the appearances of Grenfell rugs, until this auction, when we have so many in one place. So this auction aside, historically, we've been able to look at Grenfell rugs and say, well, the ones that seem to sell reliably for the most money are the ones that are like the ultimate Canadian scenes, right? The picture postcard scenes, because they functioned as souvenirs. They were sold hugely to the U.S. market, to department stores, to boutique stores, and they were meant to be like souvenirs of Canada, right? To show that sort of that lore, that wild Canadian landscape. So would a rug sell as well that is of a man, even though it's super rare? Probably not, right? Probably not. Now, we are seeing a good profit on these. We are seeing a high number on these rugs, despite the fact of it being 4. Let's look at the other 2. The subject matter on these 4, right, is kind of a hit or miss. So far we had the man with the husky, the hunter with the husky. I thought that first one was very neutral, easy on the eyes. The second one of the ice fishing scene, super rare, but not immediately distinguishable as a Grenfell rug. Now we've got the hunter spearing the seal. This is definitely a signature Grenfell rug, but historically this is not one of the more sort of savory subjects, right? This is not one of the more desirable subjects. And the reverse, I'm just making sure that you see that the tags are on these. They are in beautiful condition and the colors are great. This is the 4th in the series, and this is called Snowshoeing Scene, right? Another really unusual one. Now, I want to come back for just a moment to, not this one, hang on, the one right before. I want to come back here for a moment because there's a note. The Kneeling Ice Fisherman is part of a people working series designed by Ned Hancock, a worker at the industrial in the 1930s. A similar example to the one in this lot can be found in Paula Laverty's Silk Stockings map book, page 125. So in other words, this man working at the industrial named Ned Hancock did a series of designs that were called the People Working series, and this Kneeling Ice Fisherman is one of them. So it does have provenance. It is known. It is known. It's attributed. All of that is correct and in place. And a lot that might have sold for $600 at the top of the estimate actually sold for $1,700. Now, the thing with this lot also is that it's not entirely cohesive, is it? I mean, there's 4 very different kinds of mats in the lot. We saw the ice fisherman, the snowshoes, the husky were very graphic. 2 of the 4 have the 2-sided border as opposed to a 4-sided border all the way around. This one and the husky, I think, had the 2-sided border. So in terms of consistency, this is not a super cohesive lot of 4. But at the end of the day, these are 4 Grenfell rugs that had 4 Grenfell labels on them. And that makes them $1,700, right? That is a good amount. I still think that's something of a deal for 4 of them. Absolutely beautiful. I'm reading your comments too. So this next piece, I'm just marking these as I go because I have so many notes. This next piece is called, it's a lot of 2, and this is the first of the 2. 2 Grenfell hook rugs of Inuits hiking and a hunting scene. Okay, so this is obviously the hiking picture here. Estimate, these are, okay, so this one is 12 by 19. It's framed, meaning it is mounted onto a stretcher frame, right? It's not framed in a picture frame way, but it's mounted. Estimate on this was $600 to $800 for both. I'll show you the second one. This one, incredibly, this lot sold under. So the lot sold for $500. Now, let's look at these 2 scenes, right? This is obviously the hiking scene. Now, while this strikes me as a Grenfell, it is not one of the signature motifs, is it? It's not one of the signature motifs. Let's talk about the things that would take away from the value and allow it to sell under the asking price. There seems to be a bit of a stain on the bottom. Color-wise, the colors are not perfect. This is I was wondering if the back was showing, but the back is not showing, right? It's just like a piece of cotton on the back. So we're not seeing the back because it is mounted to a fabric frame. What's happening here is that there is a stretcher frame, like an empty picture frame, and it has been wrapped with green material, and the rug has been sewn, I'm guessing sewn, to the fabric or mounted to it with nails or tacks or something like that. So it is mounted to a green frame. That's what's happening here. So color-wise, there are some color issues here. Whether or not there's a tag on the back of it, I don't know whether the buyer would be privy to that before buying it. That's something to consider. The second piece that goes along with it is the hunting scene. And this piece is 13 3/4 by 22 1/2. So a little bigger than the previous one. Whether or not this one started out as being monochromatic, it has become monochromatic. So maybe there has been some color loss. Clearly pantyhose colors, right? Clearly. And let me see if I have detail of this piece. Nope, I don't. So let's come back to it. If you look down at the bottom right, there is a hunter down there on the bottom right. There is a house on the top right, on the edge of that little hillside. Otherwise, there's a lot of color loss here. It's a great folk art composition in that nothing has the correct proportions, right? The animals are way out of proportion in regard to the hunter. And there is a lot of color loss. Part of the reason at auction, and I'm sure you can appreciate this. Oh, good morning, Gail. Part of the reason that a lot like this, because they are two unusual pieces, right? Color loss aside and fading aside, they are two unusual pieces that they are selling as Grenfells. So one of the reasons that this lot might have gone slightly under is also its placement in the roster. Because if you think about it, there were 38 auctions that 90% of them had multiple rugs in them. In terms of pacing yourself as a buyer, you can imagine what a white knuckle exercise it is sitting there looking at people bidding against you and thinking, I have another 30-something auctions to go. Do I want to hold my fire or do I want to go for it? Not knowing, knowing that there are some coming up that you have your heart set on, must be really hard at the beginning of the auction to kind of make good decisions. For whatever reason, this piece sold under the estimate by $100. And they are two, I think, exceptionally pretty rugs. They are both professionally mounted. It is a shame that they didn't do more, but most of the rugs in this auction far exceeded, right, the expectation. I'm just looking, hold on, I'm looking for our place. There it is. We've got so many slides in this show. All right. Oh, Christy, good to see you. Welcome and great to see you. Veronica, great to see you. I'm sorry, I missed saying hello earlier. So, okay, so here we are. We are on a Grenfell hooked rug of sailing ships. This was an auction with a single item in it. Now, I want you to guess this time. Play along with me. Come on. The estimate for this piece was $700 to $900. I want you to guess how much it sold for while I tell you a little bit more about this piece. So estimate was $700 to $900. Now, this rug is mounted on a frame. It is 54 3/8 wide by 20 inches tall. Is it? No, it's not. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, it is. It is. Hold on. Grenfell hooked rug of sailing ships. Yeah, it certainly looks like what it is. Sorry, my notes are confusing me here. Mounted on a frame, additional textile mounted frame. Let me just make sure we don't have more on that one. No, I think that's the next one. Unless this was a lot. This doesn't say, nope, this wasn't a lot. All right, no, it was just this one. So hooked rug of sailing ships. I think we probably have a delay here. This is an unusual piece. 2,200. That's a great guess. 1,200. That's also a great guess. You're both guessing way over the estimate. It was actually 5,000. So this is an exceptional result. 5,000, right? And the high-end estimate was 900. Does the high-end estimate matter? Does it really matter? Well, the high-end estimate is only as good as the appraiser's research who put together the catalog for this auction. So does it matter? Ultimately it does not matter what the estimate is, because if there are multiple people bidding and they are all in love with it, they are going to redefine and reshape what a Grenfell rug is worth. And then that will be our new reality. That will be the new starting point. So does it matter what the number was on January 31st? Not per se, but what does matter is that when an auction house puts an estimate on an auction, it gives people sort of a span of what to expect, right? They put an expectation into the heads of the buyers. And because that expectation is in place, people will absolutely, human nature, be less likely to bid much higher than the high end of the estimate because they are looking at that number 900 and thinking, well, if that's what these professionals thought it was worth, then I might be a bit nervous Nelly to keep bidding, right? To keep seeing it going higher and higher. Normally that is the mentality, and that is the reason why we get the results that we get that are usually pretty close or spot on the estimate. Not in this case, right up to 5,000. I think that is extraordinary. It is an unusual piece. There is nothing else in terms of note here to say like this is marking a historical event, whatever. It must be an extremely rare piece. Christy says, I love that one. Hey, it kind of reminds me of a Japanese woodblock print. It totally does. The ice flows do look like almost snow, like patches of snow. Totally does, and certainly the same kinds of boats, right, with the square sails. This is something that we see in Japanese art too. So that's a great that's a great connection. I think that little detail of the sunset in the distance, kind of dipping down, you can only see part of it because it's behind the horizon line and also because it's being hidden by a boat. Really interesting composition. Very simple color composition, very unusual colors for a Grenfell rug. And without having extra photos of it, right, and I'm giving you, I think, all of the photos, without seeing extra photos of it, it's hard to tell whether that green was a different color before or whether it was meant to be that green. It gives it kind of, I would say, like a Renaissance quality, like a tapestry quality. The green is rather unexpected. It's a very different rug. And obviously somebody wanted it desperately because 5,000 is, you know, there's I think not a lot of people who can, well, maybe I'm wrong. I'm certainly not one of the people who can spend $5,000 without really thinking about it, agonizing about it, getting stomach cramps, and checking my bank account on my phone 1,000 times, right? I know plenty of people do exist that don't have any of those conditions, but it's a lot of money, right? I think we can agree it's a lot of money. This is another interesting piece, also mounted on a frame, right? The green frame. These were all in that show in Santa Fe. This piece is, this can't be right. Hold on, now I'm worried that I'm on the wrong piece. I'm going to hold on this one. I'm just not sure that this is the right note for this piece. I'm just not sure. Let me come back to this one because I've got estimate 400 to 600 on this and 9¼ by 7 inches. You know, that does sound right, doesn't it? 9¼ by 7 inches. Could this have sold for 1,100? Because that's what it says. It says estimate 400 to 600, sold for $1,100, 9¼ by 7¼ Hey, it says mounted on a frame with an additional textile mounted frame no longer attached. Okay, this is it. That's a lot of money for this one. 1,100, 9¼ by 7 inches. Wow. That's another one. I got to admit, I just don't, I don't quite get it with this one. There was an extra text to say like, oh, well, this is the one that Grenfell used as a shower mitt, right? And just rubbed it. That may be inappropriate. But you know what I mean? There's nothing attached to the story of this one to say, whoa, that's crazy. All it's saying is that it would be mounted to that green stretcher frame backing, but it's no longer attached, but it belongs with it. So one would have to reattach it. What was the lot number? It was, oh, I didn't include that part, Susan. I cut that out on my paperwork because I figured it didn't relate for me. Sorry. Yeah, so I'm not sure. I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, I think it's this one because size-wise, it seems like it's 9. It looks so small to sell for that kind of money. 9¼ by 7, mounted on frame with additional textile mounted frame no longer attached. Boom. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, it's a beautiful scene. That's a lot of money. That one's kind of inexplicable. And it's sometimes the ones that sell for a lot, I mean, they must be uber rare. Other ones that I think sold for not enough, like the set of 2, it's hard to say, isn't it? It's hard to say. I don't know enough about the scarcity of some of these patterns to know how much scarcity can drive the bidding up or down. For me, This one that we're looking at right now, this is going to be a series of 3 Grenfell rugs with fishermen. So this is a series of 3 themed. Now, the estimate for the 3, and you're only seeing the first one right now, is between 600 and 800. They are all mounted on frames. I'm going to show you them as we go. This is the first one. This is another in the series of people at work. This is the fisherman, right? We saw the ice fisherman. This is the fisherman with his net. This is probably circa 1938. And again, this is attributed to Ned Hancock, right? The People at Work series. Extraordinary piece. And the fact that there's an attribution of Ned Hancock. Now, I suppose there are people who, the previous lot, thank you, Liza, was 527. I suppose there are people who specifically want the Ned Hancock rugs, right? And then that would be its own pocket, or its own little fold of connecting. It is an extraordinary design. It's a very painterly design. It's very graphic. It's very of its time. This is 1930s all over. We see the extreme sort of color blocking, the sand, the rocks like bookends on the side, the net so beautifully done, the fisherman in almost cubist style. The ripple of white, right, where the wave is breaking on the shore, and then going toward that greeny blue, and then layers of color on top, probably color change over the years, but very much of its time. Fisherman number 1. This is the second in the series of 3. So this is 2 fishermen. The fisherman attributed, okay. Fisherman with net, nope. This is fisherman with net mending, okay. Yep, that was part of the People at Work series. Fisherman with net, the 2 rowing boats. Okay, so I guess this is just the fisherman with net, 11 3/8 by 15 3/8 on a frame behind it. And then there should be, oh no, I'm sorry, this is 2 men with nets. 2 men with nets. This is 8 3/4 by 9, also on a frame. So fisherman number 2, this is extraordinary. Fisherman with net. Could this be fisherman with net? Guess it doesn't matter. There's 3 of fishermen. Now, this one to me is, yeah, crazy. It's the same one, right? They flipped it for the photograph backwards and forwards. You're seeing with the backward view that the Grenfell label is not on this. Nonetheless, here it is in the Grenfell lot, so they're quite sure about the provenance and the attribution. But for me, honestly, this is one of the most extraordinary pieces in the show. I just love this so much. It is so unusual. It is so simple, so graphic. It almost has a biblical quality for me. I love the yellow costume. I love one man smoking his pipe. I love the extreme stylization of the water. It almost looks like crystal. It's so extraordinary. Let me see if there's any more from this lot. I don't want to take us, nope, I don't want to take us to the next lot. So this lot of 3 fisherman rugs that you just saw was estimated between 600 and 800. It had 21 bids, right? This was a vicious bidding war for this one. And all in all, the lot sold for $2,100. So 3 rugs for $2,100. So average $700 a rug. And I bet part of it was the fact that there was a Ned Hancock in there, and probably there are people who specifically are looking for the Hancocks. I think this one is helping a lot too. I think the one in the middle is one we see often. This one is one we definitely do not see often. This is absolutely bonkers. It's so different. It's another small piece, 11 3/8 by 15 3/8. But man, graphically, it's an extraordinary piece with a great result. The sky was fabulous on the first one. Oh, Karen, I know that was the Ned Hancock. I mean, absolutely exquisite. Absolutely exquisite. Now, this is another set. So in my mind, as I was looking at these, I'm thinking, wow, I know the auction can't go on interminably, but that past auction had 3, right? We've seen several auctions that have 3 or 4 so far. The auction that you're about to see has 5. Group of 5 Canadian hooked rugs with village and cultural scenes. They're not saying in the description that they are Grenfell rugs. The estimate on the 5 rugs that you're about to see, including this first one, was 300 to 500 for 5 rugs. This lot only had 7 bids, and the whole lot went for 500. Now, while you're going, oh, and wondering if you're going to cry yourself to sleep, let's just look at these mats. They are extraordinary. This mat is known as the nursery mat, right? So this would be, it's nice soft colors. It was meant for a child's room. It's got all of the sort of tropes, the dog sleds, the seal scenes, right? Like sampler scenes. And it's known as a nursery mat. So I've seen this rug before. This is really beautiful, soft, pale colors. That was the intention of this mat. So this piece is 25 3/4 by 20. It was intended for a child's room with typical scenes of northern life. This design by a Labrador woman was in production by 1936 and often produced as the cover for a calendar. A simple example of this design can be seen in Paula Laverty's book on page 105 if you've got that in front of you. So this is one of the 5, and I have to say in my mind, this is maybe the showstopper. So soak it in, right? This is incredibly beautiful and incredibly charming. Karen, the Fisherman in the Rowboat were your absolute favorite. To this point, it's also my favorite, but you're going to see some more that just knock your socks off. Now, this is still part of the series of 5. Remember, this grouping of 5 is called 5 Canadian Hooked Rugs with Village and Cultural Scenes. Now, this is being sold as a Grenfell rug. No, it's not. Sorry, it's not. Not necessarily a Grenfell rug. I would say, I think this is a Cheticamp rug. I mean, don't you? This is way more Cheticamp with the black border, with the subject matter. It looks like it's based on a Canadian landscape painting of that time, as so many of the Cheticamp rugs are. I think this is not a Grenfell rug, and they're not saying it's a Grenfell rug. I do think it's a Cheticamp rug. And are those valuable? Yes, but historically not as valuable as Grenfell's. So we have the nursery rug, we have this rug. This is furthering my idea that this is a Cheticamp rug as opposed to a Grenfell rug because of the hooking, right? Let's look at the reverse of the hooking. With the Grenfell mats, we're most often seeing horizontal back and forth rows. With Cheticamps, we often see vertical. Really depends on the composition and what makes the most sense in terms of speed, but this is very different than what we've seen so far. This is another that was within the same series, so this is number 3 out of 4. I think this is extraordinary as well, but this is not attributed. So this could be, let me just double check. Yeah, this doesn't have an attribution. You can see this is actually in a frame, so we're not seeing the back of it. It is a beautiful scene. I would say that if I had to choose between a Cheticamp and a Betty Ann could tell me, yeah, she definitely could. I would say this looks more like a Grenfell to me, just in terms of its scope, right? In terms of its scope, the Grenfells are typically larger. Even the small table mats are larger. Cheticamp are usually very small, like souvenir, smaller pieces. There are exceptions, of course, but with the Grenfell rugs, we're typically seeing a more panoramic scene, right? We're seeing like a full landscape. I would guess that if it was one of the two, I would guess that this is a Grenfell, partly because of the presence of brown. When we see the presence of brown this way, everything outlined in shades of brown, that says to me pantyhose, right? That doesn't say the person likes brown more than black. It says pantyhose. Yeah, I think that, Ruth, I think these are, I think this is a Grenfell, so I would say this is pantyhose, but this was not pantyhose. This is wool. So in my mind, this is a Cheticamp, and Betty Ann would definitely know. She is the queen of Cheticamp. That sweet love. I wish she was on tonight. I wish I would have given her the heads up. But I would say this is a Grenfell because, again, the presence of brown like that signals pantyhose to me, right? If whether or not that was the original color doesn't matter. It boils down to brown, right? We're seeing lots of brown in the outlining. And this one is attributed. So is this one? No, that's not that one. Hang on one second. Let me find this one. I might have put it in the wrong place. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I put this one in the wrong place. And I looked at this one. Why would this one have moved? Hold on. Hang on just a second. Oh no, it could be that bottom left. Could it be the bottom left there? Are there rocks? Wait a minute. No, it can't be. It can't be. I'm sorry. I've got the wrong one for you there. I'm going to have to figure out what that goes to. I'm sorry. It definitely doesn't go to this. Sorry about that. So I'm going to skip over that one. I don't know how I did that. And this is the 4th in that lot. And again, this is a Cheticamp. In my mind, this is not a Grenfell rug. But this is all part of that series of 4, and somebody got an amazing deal, being able to purchase all 4 of them, including the nursery rug, only 7 bids for $500. Absolutely extraordinary lot. And this is the reverse of the one we were just looking at. And again, you can see it is wool. These are not silk stockings, right? It doesn't necessarily make it one or the other. Oh, I see. I see where the other one belonged. Oh, 5. So this was a group of 5, not 4. 5 rugs for $500. So 3 of them, in my mind, are shetty comps, right? And then the nursery rug, and then the landscape, right? That had a lot of the brown outlining. Those are the 5. So there is a tag on this, but it doesn't, it's got to be the shetty comp tag, or maybe it's just a tag with the price. Doesn't look like the shetty comp tag either. So 3 shetty comps and possibly 2 Grenfells in this lot. In 500, I think that was the deal of the night, honestly, within this auction. Now, this is definitely a Grenfell. So this is Grenfell's Seagulls over Lighthouse and Harbor hooked rug. This is mounted on a frame, same thing, right? It's on a stretched frame with a piece of fabric in between. And the estimate on this was between $500 and $700. This is 40 by 26. It is known that this design was created by rug hooker Valda Vau, or Vaugh, Valda, V-A-L-D-A, Vaugh, V-A-U-G-H, in the 1930s. So attribution is there. We know who the designer is on this. This rug did well. This is a standalone auction, just this one piece. High estimate at $700. It sold for $900. I'm not surprised. This is another extraordinary flipping piece. Look at this. This is extraordinary. Now, this is one of the design elements that we're seeing over and over in Grenfell rugs that give them such prestige. The seagulls in the sky making these unique shapes, right? This is something that becomes very Grenfell. And then later we'll see this motif of the sort of tortured seagulls, right? They're not tortured, but you know what I mean, just like the posturing of them. We see this again in Riddermere rugs, which are also Canadian rugs, you know, a couple of decades later. So this would have been a 1936, 1930s, can't say 36, 1930s rug designed by Valda Vaugh. Extraordinary striation of color, extraordinary breakdown of coloration. I mean, even though there's a lot of striated color, it does have that typewriter quality of the printer running out of ink. You know when the printer runs out of ink and you get so irritated because you get all those horizontal lines? Well, when you get those horizontal lines with a Grenfell, you are thrilled. You are far from irritated, right? It is so beautiful. We're seeing a little rowboat up on the shore. We're seeing a lighthouse beacon in the distance. We're seeing a boat making its way across the horizon. We're seeing these very stylized seagulls in the sky. And we're seeing the breakdown of color in 3 levels. The greenish sea color, the very whisper light blue sky, and then in the upper sky, the way beyond, we're seeing the darker values of blue. Grady says, I love this view. It is extraordinary. It is extraordinary. It is so well done. The design is so unusual. And then we're seeing the 2 gulls down on the bottom, right? Down like on the rocks. The perspective is wacky. I think that adds to its value and its uniqueness. I don't know why in this auction some of the lots are standalone and others are not. Maybe because this is Valda Vaugh's piece, that it was a standalone that was out there like dangling in front of people who might specifically be collecting her designs within the Grenfell umbrella. Regardless, it sold for $900, and that is a goodly amount for a lot of 1. I still think it's a bargain on that, because that was a really unusual piece. Of course, your idea of which ones are the most sort of compelling will be different than mine. And you know, I am almost 100% French Canadian, but I'm not a Canadian, and I have different ideas of what is romantic and desirable in terms of imagery, and we all do. So that would affect in our mind what is good, better, and best. Now, this is another group of 4 that's coming at you, and these are going to be themed 4 Canadian hooked rugs with sailing ships. So the estimate on the 4 rugs that you're about to see, this is the first, is between 400 and 600. The first mat, right, this is a mat with the Grenfell Labrador Industries label. And this has sort of green and purple sea, beautiful, unusual colors. This mat is 18 by 22. This was exhibited in San Jose, California, at the Museum of Quilts and Textiles. It also was in the Grenfell's book. And there's a whole sort of history on each lot of where each respective rug was shown, exhibited, or seen in a book. This lot, this is the first of 4. High estimate at 600. The lot sold for 1,600. Oh, Wendy, great to see you. Working away on Caswell. I can't wait. $1,600 for this lot of 4. You're seeing the first. And there were 18 bids, just to give you an idea of the kind of interest that was on this lot. Now, part of the interest in terms of the bidding, right? Susan told us this is a collector. So probably the collector hasn't a vision for what they mean to do with the collective lots that they bought. They probably have a vision, right? It might be hoarding, and they bought it, so they get to do whatever they want with it. But they have the ones, as many as they could get or as many as they wanted. It might not be that buyer was looking specifically for specific ones, or the ones in the best condition, or the rarest ones. It might be that buyer was looking for quantity because he or she was putting something together. Who knows? But all things being equal, obviously coloration does matter. And you can see the color on this is very good on front and back. We saw how beautiful and purple it was in the front. You're seeing how beautiful and purple and blue it is in the back. There is some fading, but not a lot. This is the second in the series of 4 ships. This is very different. This is a silhouette. So while this is a more sort of rare Grenfell, I wouldn't say that it's one of the more valuable ones, just because in terms of color, impact, and what we're talking about, does it look like a Grenfell? Not really. Not really, right? Seeing something in silhouette like this is not the signature Grenfell look. This is the third one in the lot. This is the signature Grenfell look. We are seeing a beautiful black border. We are seeing heavy on the browns, heavy on the pantyhose colors. We're seeing motifs that are absolutely Canadian. The boat coming in near the lighthouse and near the rocky shore. And maybe I have one of the back of that. Nope. So if they're not showing the back, it's likely they weren't showing them in the auction either. And this is a smaller one in the same lot. So this is the 4th out of the 4. And again, this lot achieved $1,600 with 18 bids. That's exceptional. I think this is another extraordinary piece. Remember the very long piece that sold for $5,000? It had the browns, the greens, and the purples in it too. It also had a lot of blue. Looking at this kind of a boat set into what reminds me of sort of a medieval or Renaissance palette, very unusual, this sort of bronzy palette. It's not what I equate with a Grenfell, but stylistically, it's very 1920s, 1930s. And for collectors of this period of art, whether or not they are into Grenfell or interested in Grenfell, they will be interested in this image because it bears all of the tropes of that period, right? This is where art was in this period. Heavily stylized and graphic with these very unusual color plans that harkened back to many, many centuries before, right? Looking at metallic colors like bronzes and coppers and browns and pairing them with these patina colors like the green color, right? So green, purple, really unusual color palette on this. I wonder if we have, yeah, we do have a reverse of this one as well. And in the reverse, you can see these are the colors. It's not a question of fading. These are the colors. So very unusual set of 4. They were themed around the idea of them all being sailing ships, but they were very different respectively, weren't they? I mean, that's the thing about putting things together in lots. They are, I'm just going to come out for just 1 second. I would be so worried if they were my rugs about putting them in lots. I would be so worried about the auction house putting them in lots because I would be worried, should the Hancocks be with the other Hancocks or should they all be separate to get the most money for each? Should all the sailing ships be put together? Are there people who want to buy if they only are going to spend money on one or two lots, do they want one of the lots to be all sailing ships, or would they rather have a variety? These are hard. These are impossible things to decide. I mean, you're just guessing, aren't you? But these are all things that I'm sure affected the bidding. There's still very healthy bidding on all of these lots. Um, okay, hold on one second. Ruth says some CB of these colors are confusing to me. The colors, they are pulling from historic palettes, and they're doing a lot of experimenting. Usually the colors were of the same color palettes, like they were very sort of naturalist colors that had a relationship to the surroundings, the blues, the rocky shores, the sandy, grays and browns, all of the great pantyhose colors, the overdyed blues. We are normally seeing naturalistic colors that match what you would expect to see, very literal color palettes. But once in a while, you see these rugs going off on a bender and using colors that are from completely different time periods and color palettes. Now, there are going to be collectors for that specific conversation as well. People who say, yeah, I'm not really into the seals. I'm not really into people hiking through the snow. But dang it, I am into a boat that has purple and green in it that looks like it's from 1930. I'm always into that. There will be people who are there for that specifically, and they'll be the crossover buyers who are the mavericks and the wild cards, because you expect people at auction to bid within their interests, right? I collect cups from Happy's fried dough place, right? This is, I forget where this is, somewhere in Massachusetts, where I take the kids in the summer. Cups that I see that are from Happy's, I buy these. But wait a minute, I never buy these. I never buy cups that are refreshing, lemon ice cups. I never buy those. But I'm at this auction, and this really appeals to me. So you're expecting me to buy this? I'm going to upset the whole show because I see this refreshing lemon cup, and I'm going to want that too. Fits into my cup collecting. But I know there's a whole bunch of people here who are only here for lemon cups. I'm going to really upset things because I'm going to buy this, right? You don't know me as a lemon cup buyer, but it crosses over to my interest because I do like cups. This is going to happen in every auction. So you're going to be competing against people who are not hooked rug collectors, right? It's like punch to the heart, right? To the throat. Because it's like, I'm a hooked rug collector. I should be the one who's buying these rugs. But when other people who collect different branches or different sort of pockets of art for different reasons, they will cross over to textiles and they will swoop and buy if it fits one of their sub collections. So this is what makes auctions heart-stopping and stressful, but also lively and interesting. Diane says, hey, I'm late. Oh, Diane, it's great to see you. These are beautiful rugs. Susan tells us dealer number 2000 bought 10 rug lots, including this one. So it's safe to say that of the 10 rug lots, maybe one or two were individual solo rugs, but probably she bought more, like 40 or 50. No, if she bought 10 rug lots, she probably bought between 70 and 100 rugs, like just the way the numbers work out with these lots. Sue's, great to see you. Dell's lemonade pails, right? And maybe the person who buys this also buys those beautiful metal antique sand pails, you know what I mean? The tin ones, like for the beach from the 1920s, 1930s with a beautiful lithographic art on them. Maybe this person buys that too. We never know who we're competing against. As long as we are human beings, which so far we pretty much are, and as long as we are human beings, we always have the ability to change or to buy something impulsively based on an emotional reaction, right? As long as you're a human being, your emotions might get the better of you. And even if you're in there to buy bronze or you're in there to buy silver or whatever, you see that weirdly colored boat one and you're like, that's me, I'm getting it. I'm coming in for the kill. This is why, one of the reasons I just can't go to auctions in person anymore. I get so nervous that I can't enjoy myself. Like, honestly, I can't like moderate my heart rate or my emotions or my sweating or anything. It's just, nerve-wracking for me. It's good to see it after the fact when all is said and done. This is a really unusual piece, very unusual colors. And you see there is an issue with the border, not just here, but a couple places around, where you can see that the stitching up of the border is a little bit precarious. So something to think about, something to shore up quickly by safely getting this framed or mounted pretty quickly. You can see some pantyhose peeking through on the back here. So the sort of light blue turquoise colors, you can see that the cut tops of the pantyhose and how it makes that crazy kind of congested constellation of folds and wrinkles, right? Just in one loop. Really beautiful, beautiful piece. And a great sort of calling card for pantyhose hooking. That hoe was a Freudian slip, but I love hooking with pantyhose because it is so easy on the hands. Now, this was maybe one of the 3 most thrilling lots for me because I had no idea that Grenfell produced so many geometric rugs. I did not know. I'd seen maybe 1 or 2, but I did not know that there were many. And there's many more, right? These are just the ones in this auction. The group of 3 that you're about to see are all Grenfell geometric hooked rugs. Now, the estimate for this lot was between $300 and $500, and sadly, this lot sold for $200. I'm going to cry, and $50. 3 beautiful geometrics, only 5 bids, $250. Okay, we'll come back to why in just a minute. But there is a note, right, that geometric rugs are regarded as scrap mats. So they are using the leftovers from the season of matting, usually using quilt designs as inspiration to make these mats. They're regarded as scrap mats. Now, is rug hooking a thrift craft, and are we using scraps? Yes. Was Grenfell using scraps? No. Right? This was a business. This is the industrial. Rug hooking is a thrift craft. We are scrappy scrappers, and we're cutting up our pants and cutting them into strips and using them. Grenfell was using pantyhose, dyeing them, right, in a very methodical way. How many of this color do we need? How many rugs does it need to stretch across? It was an assembly line of busyness and business. It was meant for trade. It was planned. It was business. It was not the little lady sitting by candlelight cutting up clothing that could not be salvaged and hooking it into a hit or miss mat. Grenfell is not that. So there are Grenfell rugs at the end of the season using the scraps that remained, and they're saying typically they will use quilt designs as inspiration on these occasions. I guess this is the equivalent of, like Friday beads and stuff at places that made like necklaces and things out of glass, and how on Friday, whatever was left over in terms of beads, they'd put like all the glass or all the colors together and make like the Friday beads. And those would be like a kind of mishmash, milli-fury, crazy color fusion of a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Well, that's what these mats are. Having said that, oh my God, $250 for 3 geometric mats and only 5 bids. Kind of breaks my heart. You can see with this rug that there are a few pieces that are like coming loose. You could see it more on the front than the back. Tiny stain. This still has the attribution. It's got the label on it. We know that these mats are from the end of the season, right? So does that make them less valuable? In this auction, it did make them less valuable. Again, this is where like your individual heart comes in, because for me, loving quilts as much as I do and loving hooked rugs as much as I do, this is the third of the 3. This obviously has a way more sort of, I was going to say Native American, but it has more sort of indigenous feel to it, right? It kind of looks like a Navajo rug to me, but regardless, it is still a geometric sawtooth, pattern around the border. For me, because I love quilts, I would have gone nuts for these 3 rugs had I allowed myself to participate in this without, being afraid I would just keep hitting the button when I really couldn't afford it, which I would have been afraid I would do. So for me as a quilter, these rugs have, those 3 rugs I just showed you have way more value than $250 collectively. But that's what they sold for. And I'm sure part of the reason the value was less on those was because they are not the, say it with me, traditional Grenfell rug motifs. That's where the value is. If you're investing in Grenfell rugs, you want the ones that look like Grenfells. You don't want the ones that look like hit or miss patterns from Maine, right? And typically the mats that were geometrics were used in places of the house that were private places, like the bathroom, the kitchen, the bedroom, not the rooms of the house where visitors would see. You would want to save like picture rugs or fancy rugs for those places, but geometrics were like low on the totem pole as far as prestige went. And that's also reflected in the low cost realization of that. Yeah, it does vibrate. It's absolutely beautiful. These were all three extraordinary rugs. I mean, maybe that was the great deal of this auction. All right, hang on. I'm struggling. I'm struggling with controls. Hang on. I'm bringing us back. Okay, here we go. I found us. Well, I lament that for sure. I lament that. But I'm very happy for whoever got them because they are an extraordinary set of three geometrics. Okay. This next series you're about to see is a group of 7, not the group of 7, just a group of quantity 7, Grenfell hooked trivets with polar bears and birds. Genesis, I like that last one also as you're a quilter. Yeah, isn't that it? Like that's the part that you cannot account for. You cannot anticipate how many people will be bidding alongside you who want that rug because they're quilters or their mom was a quilter or their grandma was a quilter. And it feels differently. They want it for that reason. The heartstrings are attached. They're going to bid on it. You can't account for that in situations like this, you know. That didn't really come into it in this auction. We didn't get the heartstrings bidding on that. We got most of the serious bidding was seen on Grenfell rugs that were super rare and that were traditional Grenfell motifs. Heartbreak. Okay, now this is going to be a series, one of a series of 7 mats, and this does have a bit of a broad description. So this is a group of 7 polar bears and birds. These are trivets, so these are smaller sized rugs. The largest one is a 16-inch diameter. So let's look at what these 7 look like. Now, this was the thumbnail for the lot of the 7 rugs that you're about to see. I'll tell you before we get started that the estimate on this lot is 300 to 500, and there were 11 bids on this lot, and the lot sold for 1,100. So more than twice, you know, over the estimated high-end bid. Now, for me, just in terms of my personal taste, this is not the one of the 7 that I would have put as the thumbnail. This is it's a lovely shape. Don't get me wrong. This is a lovely shape. This trivet has damage around the edge. It has a lot of staining on it. It is a lovely subject, but look at the other ones that are in this lot. Right away, this one to me is more interesting than the bird. This is in extraordinary condition. This really stands out as a pantyhose mat, right? I'm seeing those colors of gray. I do want to see that. I want to be reminded that one of the things that makes Grenfell so extraordinary and different and special is the fact that these mats were hooked with pantyhose. I like to see that. I like to see all those shades of brown and remember that aspect of the story. This is the reverse of the same rug. So this is the reverse of the polar bear. So we are seeing the labels attached. This is all very good. Another polar bear, this is a fairly common mat that you see out in the wild. This is a really good one. I think there's something about the polar bear when he's stretching his neck out like that. Stylistically, he's very elegant, right? He's ready for like a Vogue cover. He just needs a fashion model standing next to him. Beautiful color, very mellow color, limited. Very good outlining here, right? You're seeing everything pop the way that it should. This doesn't feel like a piece that has lost a lot of its energy or its color. It's a beautiful piece. Here is the reverse. The front is actually even more extraordinary, right? It's that well preserved. This is the one for me in this lot. This is the "Are you kidding me?" one, and you're going to see another one of the same design in the same lot. This is extraordinary. I mean, again, how many ways can you pose a dang seagull to make it look interesting? Infinite is the answer. Within the Grenfell mission, within the industrial, the answer is infinite. You can pose a seagull in so many ways to make this look interesting. It's like birds, birds, and more birds. Not in this case. We have got like this weird seagull who's floating on the surface, right? Who's well set, right? His little body is well set into the water. He's comfortable. He even looks a little relaxed and a bit puffy, just floating along there. And the bird above him, the gull above him, his counterpart, is swooping in at this unnatural angle that really emphasizes the circular shape of this trivet. It's an extraordinary shape. It's a beautiful design. It's very unusual. And the simple touch of those filigree lines at the bottom, it's just an extraordinary piece. I think the colors are extraordinary. I think the shape is extraordinary. I think the sort of conversation between these two birds is extraordinary. I think this is a standout trivet. Here's the reverse of the same mat. Oops, 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 do not delete, sorry. Here is the same design in a different color. Now, this mat is in it's slightly worse for wear, right? It's a little bit roughed up. Same design, clearly. A few different things going on here. Very different color palette. It's gone away from that sort of bottle green, and it's gone toward that green blue, like that deep sea green color. More color loss on this. You can see even the black is kind of flagging and fading. Little bit different, right? The expression on the bird on the bottom with the sort of bag under its eye doesn't look as sort of peaceful and sort of sassy as the other one that was kind of sitting fat and pretty. This is a more sort of like worried looking seagull in the water. And somehow the bird above, maybe it's the color loss because it is the same pattern, but somehow the bird above on this one doesn't have the strength of the bird in the last one of the same pattern. But color-wise, I think the color for me is more interesting in this one. So there's pros and cons for both. Luckily, they're in the same lot, which again begs the question, do you want two of the same pattern, that was the reverse, in the same lot? I don't know. I don't know. And why isn't this image coming up? Hang on. Let me see. That image was not coming up for us. All right. Yep, I guess we're good. I think we're still talking about the same lot because this was a lot of 7. This is another repeat within the same lot. This is the polar bear that I said, isn't his neck stretched out really pretty like a Vogue cover? Same pattern. I feel that the colors, there's different fading here and there's more fading here. I feel that the colors on this one maybe started as more interesting colors, but the impact is lost a little bit on this one because so many colors have gone toward white. I'm guessing the ground was more sort of brown, maybe not, maybe the ice flow was white, but it just seems like it's lacking color as opposed to the first one that we saw. I don't know. I still love the shape of them, and I love the various colors of blue and the shade of blue. It's not the green blue, it's the cornflower blue that's in the water. So very different again, completely the same design, different color handling. It just gives you a different vibe. That's the thing, just a different vibe, same pattern. And this one is the same as the first one. So I believe that this pattern, this lot was made up of at least 3 repeats and 1 different one. So 2 flying birds, 2 of the seagulls with the swooping, like cradling wings in the second seagull, and 2 polar bears on ice floes. And I think that there was 1 other polar bear. So this was a fantastic lot. How you would display it with 3 repeats, I don't know. But 1,100 for 7 Grenfell mats, that feels like a deal to me. For me, this one is less appealing as well. I don't know if there's a lot of color changing in the sky, but it somehow seems, for me, too colorful. So while it is a Grenfell, because it's marked as a Grenfell, it seems so colorful that it's, for me, less appealing. In my mind, part of the charm of the Grenfell rugs is the limited color palette and the fact of them being pantyhose. This almost looks like you've used a whole crayon box full of colors, like you've just gone for the gold here. It's a lot of color. Now, is it vivid and lush and lovely? Of course it is. Does this, for me, does this strike me as super Grenfell? Not super Grenfell because it's so colorful, right? So this was a lot. Jenna says, I like the last one. Also, I'm a quilter. Interesting colors for the ice flow. I know, it's almost like shades of Maud Lewis. Remember when we talk about Maud Lewis and the way that she painted and the colors that she used, right? Usually she was limited to colors that were leftovers from the docks, like nautical paint from the docks. Those were her color palettes, right? Those were the choices in front of her. And for that reason, we see a lot of Maud Lewis, iconic Canadian painter, a lot of her seasonal work that has what I think of as seasonal confusion, because you're seeing like a winter scene where it's snowing, but some of the trees have blossoming cherry blossoms. And then in the same picture, maybe there's also like birch trees with yellow leaves, and seasonal confusion. Some of the Grenfells are like that too for me, because you're seeing ice flows not reliably in white. You're seeing sand not reliably in water, not necessarily going to be blue, right? So you get some color that is literally the right color, and then you get a lot of stylization. And you also get a lot of fading. And without seeing the back of each individual rug, you can't attribute it as fading or intentional cover until you're sure and you see the back of the rug. There's so many moving parts with these Grenfell rugs, and I think that's what makes them so interesting. By the way, I was thinking about offering, I keep getting emails about Maud Lewis, and I've already done a design like Maud Lewis class, but I was thinking about doing another live Maud Lewis class, because I know a lot of people only like to do the live Zoom classes. I was thinking about doing another design like Maud Lewis, but with a special emphasis like through the seasons with Maud Lewis. Like we're just looking at the seasons in her painting and coming up with designs that hinge on the 4 seasons, so that we have specific compositions that we mean to do from season to season. Let me know if that's something that's interesting for you, because if there's a big demand for it, I will offer it in person again. Love talking about Maud Lewis, and I'm always happy to do it. So that was a very good result on that lot of 7. That is a lot, isn't it? Now, be still my heart. Here we go again. 3 Grenfell hooked rugs with geometric designs. 4 bids on this lot. Estimate was only $150 to $300 for 3 rugs. The largest one is 23¼ by 35. Again, these are scrap mats that are based on quilt patterns. This lot of 3 sold for $350. I'm just going to get it out of my system. I'm not going to keep you in suspense, because, again, I really wish I was watching this auction. I really do. These 2 lots of geometric rugs, for me, are like, I think, my favorites. Maybe not my all-time favorites, but the ones that are my all-time favorites of the ones we're seeing are ones I could not have bought anyway. These I might have been able to buy, and I would have loved them so much. But I would not have loved them necessarily for being Grenfells. I would have loved them for being quilt patterns and for their intrinsic beauty. And isn't that odd, right? To be able to own a Grenfell, but your favorite thing about it is that it's a quilt design, right? There is the sort of disparity. And that is, I'm sure, the reason why these didn't sell as well as some of the other motifs. So this is the second of the 3 geometrics. This is totally a scrap mat in the center with just brown, 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 but so beautiful. And then this sort of oddball cropped log cabin around the border, right? All facing in different directions, just kind of echoing a corner square, right? Just a corner. Really, really beautiful and different. I would put this up on the wall, and I would put like statues or whatever like in front of it, like one of my statues that I really love or something really 3-dimensional, because that's a lot of brown. That's a huge field of brown. But man, that border is beautiful, and I do love the brown. There's so many things that you could do there. Put a bell jar in front of it, right? Put a bell jar in front of it with a little scene under it, or so. Oh, can you imagine? Somebody made out like a bandit. This is the 3rd of the 3 scrap mats, the geometric mats, that again sold for $350. So over the estimate, but I think not enough. And this one is a little bit faded with age. You see, even though this is a scrap mat made of leftovers, the person who made this really stretched the colors in a way that they were able to get a very distinct pattern. And it is really lovely, and it's very springtime, and you can even see on the back of this, colors are very sharp, very pretty. Totally unusual color plan. Lots of yellow left over. I'm not surprised. We don't see a lot of yellow in Grenfell rugs, do we? Lots of the pantyhose color, just like the nude color not surprised. And then that very strong purple and the green, right? We've seen the presence of all three of these colors in previous mats, but not often, right? So it's not surprising that these would have been colors that were left over. Okay, thanks for the feedback on Maud Lewis. I will start putting that together. That would be fun. And it will be different from the last one. So, okay, moving on to a lot with 2 Grenfell hooked purses. These are 2 purses. Now, if you feel like some of these prices are low and you're worried that you might cry yourself to sleep tonight, I'm going to say walk away right now because this one sold under. This one sold way under. Now, this is the first of 2 purses. Was Grenfell known for making rugs or trivets or purses? Definitely not purses. So there are quite a few purses in this auction, and the purses aren't necessarily going to do well. It's not what we expect. The design, can you fault this design in any way? No, this design is over the top. So these are puffins, right? The estimate for this lot of 2 purses was between $500 and $700, and they sold for $350. Only 4 bids. Each one is lined with satin. The puffin purse has the label that says Grenfell Laboratory Industries. Let's look at the other one as well. The puffin purse is 6 3/4 inches by 9.5 inches. I just think this is an exceptional design. It is absolutely exceptional. These are your favorite, Sharon? And not just the puffins and not just this crazy sort of Agatha Christie cover of a book with all of these slashes of graphic, zigzaggy, stylized mountains or icebergs, ice flows, outcroppings of rock. Whatever they are super stylized in the Art Deco style. Besides that being extraordinary in and of itself, look at the hit or miss that's done with like the black and the gray. Isn't that gorgeous? It reminds me of an old TV when it was between the stations. You know what I mean? You're just getting this static. Absolutely gorgeous. This is the purse with the fox. So this is the second purse. Would you ever look at this piece and say, wow, look at that Grenfell? Never. Never. You might look at it and say, pretend you're in an antique store. Oh, wow, what's that? God, that looks like it's so fine. It's either needlepoint or wait a minute, it could be pantyhose. And then you maybe say to yourself, oh, Christ, if it's pantyhose, I wonder if it's a Grenfell. It is a Grenfell. But you would not immediately right out of the gate think, oh, that's a Grenfell, isn't it? I mean, none of us would, I don't think. It's so different. It's so odd. It's a purse, right? So these are satin-lined purses, and this really is not what Grenfell does, and it's not what they were known for. Again, in my mind, these are like unicorns, right? Like they're absolutely unicorns. I would want them just because I'm thinking, how many can there be out there of Grenfell purses? Grenfell rugs, yeah. Grenfell purses, ooh, now that's interesting. But they didn't do super well at auction. They sold way under. They sold at half of the high estimate at $350. So not super well. But if the collector who's buying them, or collectors plural who are buying them, are looking for things to put on the wall, this ain't going to help them, is it? I mean, this is cute as a button, but it ain't going to help them. I mean, the fox and the puffins, I think, are extraordinary. I think they were each worth $500 each, personally, because they're so different. Try to find another Grenfell purse with a fox on it or with puffins on it. You're not going to find it. So for that reason alone, I think they were well worth it. But that one fell sadly under the bidding. That one way underperformed. This lot underperformed as well. This is another lot of handbags. In this case, this is obviously a tote bag. We're going to look at a series of 3. This lot of 3 was estimated between $500 and $700, and this lot also sold under, achieving only $400 with 4 bids. So this piece, this is called, hold on one second, let me just get this right. I think this one is called Northern Skies. This could be mating season. It's impossible to tell. One is called Goose on a Dark Green Background. It ain't going to be that, is it? And then Mating Season. No. Polar Bear. Nope. And Northern Scenes. These might have been, actually, those might have been shows. Yeah, those might have been shows, not the names of the bags. So we might not actually have the names of the bags. So we'll just keep going. It's an exceptional design. And we have seen this design before as a trivet, right? That was the one that was the thumbnail that I said, not sure I would use this as a thumbnail, but this, it's expanded into like a golden rectangle. It's more than a square design. And this is meant to be a handbag. And you can see it's held up very well. It's held up so well that, oops, sorry, that the straps, wait a minute. The straps have given way, and those are good, strong braided straps. But the straps have given way. But the bag itself looks like it's still got a lot of integrity. It's a beautiful piece and another really unusual piece. So one tote bag, we have got one tote bag. We have got, I think this is, wait a minute, is this the same one? Hang on, let me check. Yeah, I think that's the same one. Hold on. Let me get rid of that. I think that's the back. All right, so it's actually the same design, front and back. Oh, God, which basically means it's two Grenfells, right? Front and back are both hooked mats that are attached. It's two-sided. And this is another bag. Obviously, this is a Grenfell that is done with all brown, except this one band of this icy minty green color with a little blue ice flow. Tiny little polar bear, and this is on the wooden handles that we see become much more popular more toward the 1960s, right? But they were already being made in the 1920s, 1930s. Actual handbags, right? Tote bags were much more unusual at that time. People did carry like clutch bags and handbags in their hands, right? Putting things over your shoulder, you wouldn't have done that to the garments of that day, right? You would not have slung bags over your shoulders. That was just not done. So these are the kinds of bags we're seeing at that time, and it is unusual. Oh, that's great, Karen. Send those to me. Diane says, I love the geometric rugs with the leftover from this season rug hose. Yeah, to me, even more extraordinary because it's a time capsule of the year's colors. Absolutely. Seeing those rugs, it's like a little anniversary thing. I love the geometrics too. Here's another one of the same kind of thing, except with this bag, the tote handle or the tote straps are also hooked. Yeah, unusual. So, I mean, maybe less successful. There are 4 trees here, but it's so dark in the background, you're not seeing the really dark green trees. The bird looks a little bit skimpy here, a little bit of an anemic bird flying across the sky. He's just probably hooked. You know how we have that conversation, should I hook on the line, inside the line, or outside the line? And the answer is always choose one and stick with it. It seems to me like this person hooked inside the lines. You see what I mean? It seems like a very pained Canada goose. And this is the back. Oh no, this is another one. So this is the 4th. The 3rd, right? It's the 3rd. Is it 3? Yeah, it's 3. So this is a geometric, but really stunning, right? I can see how this couldn't really get momentum on its own with all of the browns and the bronzy, but you see how it has that pretty purple in there too? Really pretty. And I think this is one of the inner bags that would go inside something else. I don't think that this is hooked. I think that this is embroidered, right? This looks like needlework, but still part of the lot. And it could have been like an inner, little zip bags and things that you put in so you don't lose everything within the larger bag. Could have been one of those. I don't know. Or it also could be, it looks like it has that circle thing to clip to a belt, right? It could have been one of those kinds of things. It's very pretty. It's definitely a luxury item. It's not something that someone would just wear around the farm or whatever. But this is needlepoint, I think. I think this is needlepoint. I honestly can't see it well enough to know. No, it says embroidered suede zipper pouch. So this is kind of the odd man out. But you can see it was a lovely lot, and for all of that to sell for $400, that was definitely on the low side. But our takeaway from that conversation is the bags don't do that well. They just don't do that well. You go to I don't know, the best pizza place, right? I'm in New Haven, so there's like, you go to Pepe's or something like that. You go to Pepe's, are you going to order pizza, right? It's like the most famous pizza place in this part of the country. Or are you going to order lasagna? You're probably going to order pizza, right? And same thing with these bags. You're buying Grenfells. You want to buy the purse or you want to buy a mat? I think purses are always going to struggle in any market, in any auction, because they're just always going to be the odd man out. Susan says, my super favorite, which won't come up for a while, Lone Wolf. We will see it eventually. Susan, I'm going to log off soon too. I'm going to hold Lone Wolf for you. It is a beauty. Rita says, I have a small round flowered pattern mat made from stocking. Was sold to me as a possible Grenfell. It doesn't have a label, and I wondered if the flowers were a common motif. Now I wonder. Rita, we're going to see a lot more. I mean, I'm only doing probably one more tonight, but we're going to hit this again this week. There's a lot with flowers. Like it's not one of the main motifs, but there's a lot with flowers. So it could well be. And Karen says the embroidery piece would make a great rear rug design. Absolutely. It's so stylized and basic. It could stand to be pixelated with like a high pile cut carpet. Absolutely. So let's look at this one. This will probably be our last one for tonight. We have lots more, so you know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow morning on Coffee Time. This is, I'm wondering if I should start this. Yeah, let's do it. So this is going to be a lot of 7 Grenfell hooked placemats with polar bears and puffins. The largest puffin mat, which I believe is this one, is 11 3/4 by 17 inches. It's funny that they're saying placemats. I mean, I guess they're not quite rug size. I'd hate to think of someone putting food down on it, but maybe. So this is a group of 7, and the theme will be polar bears and puffins. The estimate for the 7 that you're about to see is $400 to $600. The realized price was $1,700, so that is a very good result. 4 of the 7 have the Grenfell label on them. There are 5 mats in the slot with polar bears, 2 mats with puffins, and the large puffin mat, which again I believe is this mat. So let's look at these together. This one has become very monochromatic, and there is a color issue here. This mat is a little bit unusual for me. There's a few things that are good here that catch my eye. Number one, the puffin has a lot of character, right? He's got an expression. Sometimes when we see the animals, particularly in silhouette, they're pretty stoic looking, right? They're just they're graphic. You don't get a feel for the creature's personality. In this case, this puffin looks like he's smiling, and he looks like he's cheerful. He's got a cartoony quality. That's unusual. The little ledges of snow, the way that they're dripping down, like little white fingers dripping down, that's really unusual. Like that really strikes me as a nice detail. Those are things I really like about this mat. One of the things I don't love about this mat is the heavy border. That's a very heavy border for a not very big piece. Now, it might not bother you, and I wouldn't say that it necessarily bothers me, but I feel the proportions of this piece are off because the border is quite thick, right? It's not like I don't love it or I wouldn't love to have it, you know. You can see that with this piece, the fading is colossal. So this is the same piece, believe it or not. I think that what you're seeing hand stitched to the back is for hanging it. It could have been that it was hung on the wall in the direct sunlight. That's my guess, because I can't imagine how else this could have happened, right? It's obviously not being used as a placemat. It's being hung on the wall because there's a hanging pocket for a rod to go right through it. And man, the color loss in this is phenomenal. Like, it's extreme. It's almost complete color loss. So that piece on its own would not do super well, because that's definitely a big negative. It does have the Grenfell sticker. That part's good. Here's another piece that's a little bit questionable. Now, another polar bear on an ice floe, unless you love kawaii art, right? I don't know. He's pretty nondescript, right? He is a bit of a lumpy, dumpy polar bear. I mean, it's not that he's not cute. He doesn't have a lot of features. He's kind of the opposite of the puffin. We're just seeing him in silhouette. The ice floe that he's standing on is also very odd, right? I do like the icebergs in the distance, I have to say, and there's a lot of color loss here, but it's almost like every hooker must have started somewhere, right? This almost strikes me as a mat that a total beginner was doing, like as she was learning, or he or she was learning, because it's almost over stylized. And the ice flow, you know how all of the ice flows we've seen have this great kind of contrast to the side, right, to give it dimension and depth. This one doesn't. It's more like a slice of watermelon, you know, and he's kind of just standing on top of it. Still unusual, pretty, but it seems to lack the nuances of other Grenfells. It seems like more of a beginner piece. It functions well as a folk art piece, but it does have a lot of color loss. And in terms of its patterning, the pattern is not fantastic. This, on the other hand, is exceptional. So why this is in the lot with the others, I think this is probably the piece that brought this lot of 7 to $1,700 and 10 bids. This is exceptional. I mean, just looking at the stylized square pieces, the ice flows, right? It's almost like docks, like you're swimming, you know, you're in your favorite lake and you're jumping off the dock and it's a perfect square. Here they are. Here are the docks. It has a carousel quality to it because of the waves. You see what I mean? Like the way it's kind of scalloping up and down and up and down. It reminds me of like a carousel ride. This is just a great rug in terms of color. The shape of the animal, I think, is very endearing. The tiny suggestion of the eye and the ear and even the nose is subtle and perfectly done. And the fact of the animal putting the paw into the water, it becomes a bit of an action shot. Maybe he's fishing, probably, right? But just like a little bit of a difference between a bear standing on an ice floe and a bear with like one little tippy toe in the water. There are birds in the sky here, and there are fields of different color in the sky. All of the ice flows have a very distinct color change from the top to the bottom. Almost looks like a video game. It's super, super graphic. It's a very successful composition. The black is very strong around the edges. It's got that great pastel, very reserved Art Deco palette. It's an exceptionally good piece. Here's the back of it, a little more colorful, but I still think the colors on the other side were exceptionally good. You can see the birds better here. You can see the overall composition better here. I think this is an extraordinary piece. I think that's the piece that made the lot. Oh, wait a minute. I showed you the wrong one first. Wait, I got to show you this one first. You see what's going on here that makes it very different. This is something we'll see more of tomorrow. This is a Grenfell. And where the animal is pictured, right, this is a polar bear, it's actually fur. So it's basically an applique of fur that is applied to the surface of the shape, right, that is intended for the polar bear's body. Everything else is hooked business as usual, but the character of the polar bear is appliqued with fur, so it does have a pile to it. And it will be soft. It's very different. This is another unusual piece. The ice floe that this bear is standing on is like, it reminds me of like one of those English biscuits with the wavy edges. And the icebergs in this case are like two sci-fi lobster claws coming out of the water. Very odd shape. Fairly amateur in its execution. The ice floe is decorative and pretty, but it's not as realistic as the ice flows we're used to seeing. The distant icebergs seem to be hooked by someone who has never seen an iceberg and doesn't know how they resolve, right? That it's just like a block of ice, not something that turns sculptural and shapy at the top. The perfect... Sorry, I'm just listening because someone's crying wildly. It doesn't sound like either of my kids, so I'm hoping someone's watching TV. That scared me. The way that the birds are perfectly spaced, like at a measured distance, that is not good for design. That is not good for design. That is the sure sign of like an amateur piece. So there's a lot that this piece doesn't have going for it, but one thing that it does have going for it is the applique feature. Does the polar bear look good appliqued? I mean, he definitely doesn't, but there's not a lot of examples. There are more tomorrow that you'll see, but there are a lot of examples of applique done on these rugs. So in that regard, another pocket of collecting. If you are collecting Grenfells that have applique features, you want this piece and you're going to go for it, right? See how beautiful the shape of him is here, undone. then you see it, actually done, and it's hard to tell whether it's a wolf or a polar bear. There is a little eye in there. I don't know if that's painted or if that's stitched. And Karen, oh no, Judy says it almost looks like a whale head and tail. Yeah, I mean, it looks more like a creature than it does the landscape. And yeah, the birds, to me, the birds are a problem too. It's very designy, right? It's very designy in a fashion sense. It looks almost like a textile pattern. But with the Grenfells, we do see birds sweeping at weird angles and overlapping, and we don't see matchy match even numbers of stuff. This is a huge attempt at matchy match with this piece here. So really unusual. I think there's more in this lot, so we better keep going till we hit the next lot. Okay, yep, we're going to keep going until we hit the next lot, so we're all set for tomorrow. Another polar bear. This polar bear, I have to say, this one strikes me as a successful polar bear because he's very heavy in his shape. You know, we see Art Deco polar bear is very popular during the Art Deco period. When you see sculptures, they have this kind of rise, right? This kind of bend to the back, like almost like a hump, and a sort of solidness, a weight to them. This polar bear has that style more than the elongated ones that are more elegant looking, right? This looks more like it was drawn looking at a piece of sculpture, not at an actual bear. Because it does, you know, this is stylized, but actual polar bears, if you can picture how they walk, they really lumber, right? Their skin crawls and moves as they walk. This is a very solid bear. This is a very substantial bear, very unusual. And the way that the land is broken down behind the bear, very unusual. So the ice flow is almost functioning as a dock, right? We're not seeing him in the water. We're just seeing him on solid ice. And then in the distance, we're seeing a very unusual color breakdown of what would have been a sort of paint by number landscape in the background. Let me see if there's a back. This is the reverse of that. So this is what it looked like back in the day. This makes a lot more sense. Like a rock face mountain with lots of snow caught on it. This makes more sense to me than this. But in terms of a design, it's a good solid design, and it is definitely a nice looking polar bear. And that's going to go a long way. You know, if you're looking for lots of polar bears. Here's more happy puffins. This is still the same lot. Again, some different stuff going on here. Great characterization. We're not seeing open eyes here. We seem to be seeing closed eyes, but almost too much color in the beaks. I'm sure it's very realistic, but lots of mechanics happening with the birds' faces. Lots of mechanics happening on the ground. This person also created shadow under the puffins and even some little rocks or shells, probably rocks. So lots of detail in this piece, and we don't typically see detail in Grenfells that is included according to perspective. In other words, in this Grenfell, we are seeing a stylized distant iceberg and water in the distance, but close up, we're getting more detail, like we're getting individual rocks and shadows. That's not typical of a Grenfell, right? It's not typical. We're used to seeing a flat graphic where there's pretty much equal emphasis and importance throughout the entire composition. In this composition, we're kind of bound to the stuff that's closest to us because it has the most detail. It's almost over detailed in contrast to the rest of the piece, and that is not typical of a Grenfell. So is it colorful and interesting because it has more colors than most? Yes, but it also makes it less Grenfell-esque, if you see what I mean. Now this one is going to be, I'm going to show you the front and back of this, and that will be the end for us for tonight. And I'll be back tomorrow with the continuation of this program. This one, you got to love it or hate it. I have to say, I mean, this is not the one that I would pick. Janice, you're right. It does look like ski trails in the back on that one, that last one. It definitely did. This one is so stylized that it's comical. I think my daughter, as a lover of Pokemon characters, would love this one, and he would be called like Schnoodle-de-Noodle or something, and he would be this lumpy, big white polar bear. Stylistically, it's a great design. In terms of looking like a Grenfell, it's not successful, right? It is over-stylized. It is all hooked. It's a very lumpy depiction. And again, this might be like a beginner mat. You either love it or you hate it. It is a Grenfell. it is different, right? It looks different, but it doesn't necessarily look like a Grenfell. There's one motif that is just inflated and is the only motif. Although I have to say the coloration in the background is very soft, very sweet. This mat has had water hit it because you see how wetness has activated the outline around the polar bear, and it's kind of bled into that light blue sky. The blue sky is still beautiful, and the bleeding of the of the brown really appeals to me. It creates like this haze of rust around this character, and like, let's admit it, this piece needs more stuff to look at besides Mr. Lumpy Bumpy. So it is an unusual mat. It is a Grenfell. It has got to be a beginner mat. Yeah, it's not super successful in terms of looking like a picture of a polar bear, but the fact of it being such an oddball piece, in my mind, that gives it value. And this was part of a set of 7 that sold collectively for $1,700. So, you know, so it didn't have to perform on its own. If it had to perform on its own, I'm afraid it wouldn't have done very well. But this piece appeals to me because it says to me, someone was trying, someone was starting, someone was learning. They didn't quite have it figured out yet, but I can definitely tell it's an animal. It's done with silk stockings. The colors are still mellow and beautiful. It really glows, and it's a little bit funny, right? Yeah, it is fun. A polar bear is a great motif to hook. That was Mr. Lumpy Bumpy. All right, so we ran over. Sorry about that. We still have a lot of content for tomorrow. Yeah, I think we're going to be good for tomorrow's show. So I'm all set to pick up tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we will come back and look at more of these. We'll see how far we get. If we don't finish, we'll tip over into Wednesday, but we'll see how it goes. I've got a lot of stuff to do right now. If you were online today, you saw I was under fire quite a bit with trying to maintain our Facebook page, which is Rug Cooking and Punch Needle Club. And I also had to put something out to Tigger as the president because there's a lot of news this weekend. I don't want to get into it again, but I was under fire for the afternoon just now, and I got a bunch of screw you type messages, which is fine. It's fine for me. I don't get upset with that stuff anymore. I'm just like, whew, ready for a drink. So I've got a lot to do in the morning, but I will definitely be with you at 11, and we will hope to dig in and get as much done as we can on what will certainly be another busy day with managing and adminning and stuff. But hey, thank you so much for being with me tonight. It was great to be together. It was a great relief after a very stressful day for me with work stuff. It was a great relief for us to be able to be together and spend time together and comment on these pieces and look at them and talk about them and just remember and think about the Grenfell mission and just make a mental note to yourself, right, for posterity. What an important moment in time that was for us as rug hookers. That is part of the story that got us to where we are today doing this craft, right? This is a huge part of the story. What a lot of beautiful pieces in one night. I'll show you some more tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I am looking forward to it. I will see you all tomorrow. Have